Welcome back to Timo's Dinky Detailing. Today I'm going to be restoring a Dinky 131 E-type Jaguar. This is a 2+2 version. And on this project, unfortunately, I ran into a problem and I lost a whole bunch of early clips for the video. So I don't have the turntable, but here's the toy that I examined. So without the turntable, at least we can see in detail what this car looks like. It's been well played with. This model is a later Dinky model, and I think they were owned at the time by Matchbox Toys. Dinky had gone through some various ownership problems, but this model was, I always viewed it as kind of a display model, but this one obviously has been played with very well, and it's been painted by a child. It's in good shape. It says E-type Jag 2+2. It doesn't have a number on the base, which is okay because you can always look these things up on the internet. Anyway, all the parts are there except for the back window and the door panels, and there's windows in the doors. There were kind of partly open, and inside it's missing the folding seat backs. So the normal way I repair these is I drill out the rivets to take the body apart and take all the parts, and then I strip them using caustic soda. And in this case, I also did a repair. The bonnet didn't have the hinge bar, and so I replaced that. And I kind of wish it was an interesting repair, but oh well, what are you gonna do? So I'll make do, and so this is after stripping and buffing on the wire wheel. And at this point I left the engine mounted on there, but I take it off later, you'll see. So there's the base, and all those parts are there. So this is the interior, and needed to do some repair on the hinge support for the tailgate. And here I'm using a little bit of JB Weld because I wanted it to be very strong, because I figured there'd be a lot of leverage on it, which is probably why it broke in the first place. Now I've got this new stuff. This is Mr. Hobby white putty. This stuff dries very fast, so I've got to work with it pretty quickly. And on the bonnet, there's a space designed for putting the number plate on the front, and this is designed so the factory they know where to put it. But it's not really there on the real car, so I wanted to smooth that out instead. So here I've gone to the base and I've taken off the spring, because otherwise you can't really take the wheels off. You've got to, I wanted to keep the axles intact. So I'm going to hold the spring back in with a single screw, so it's offset, so it's holding just on the one corner, but I figured that's going to work. So I've tapped it for 440, and I'm putting one of my 440 screws in there. You can see the spring, just to test it out if it's going to hold it, and it does. The rivet, the big gigantic rivet that was holding that, still has the edge on it, so it doesn't move around. So back to the interior. This JB Weld takes a long time, so it took me a couple of days to fix that up. And here I'm standing now, the white putty. I like that white putty. It's pretty good. It has some unique characteristics. You got to get used to it, but I'm liking it. So here I'm taking the, I kind of neglect taking off those casting lines. So on this one, I wanted to look after that as well. I'm doing my best to get this finish perfect. So I'm using here pink primer. Pink primer is you're supposed to use it when you're spraying yellow for some reason, but also when you're spraying red. And I've decided there was a red version of this, so I'm at least going with one of the colors that it came with, although I'm doing it really as a resto mod. There's other things going to be happening here. So after painting, I recommend that you sand off any imperfections. So I'm using some sandpaper to take off the high points. Now the rear window, I've got this is plastic packing material from this year's Christmas cards, but it's really nice. It's nice and flat for this application, which is perfect, and it's very clean. Doesn't have any scratches on it from handling. So here I was trying to draw the outline, and I just pressed it with my fingers instead. And I'm cutting out a pattern and fitting it to the space inside that's designed for the glass that came with the toy. And then I've got the rivet there. I didn't take it off. It was already what it was, and it's kind of mushroom shaped. So I've decided I'm going to put a slot in the bottom of the piece of plastic so that the window can be in there without any glue. So here I'm cutting out the slot to the paper pattern that I made. So try it out in here, fit it into the mushroom, and Bob's your uncle. It fits just perfectly. So one of the missing parts for this model was the headlights, and so I decided I would design some on the computer and 3D print them. This is an early version. I did a better version later on, which you see in the final one. They're not perfect. It's very hard to make those curves, and I spent a lot of time, and I think it came out okay. I'm happy with it. Now the other thing I did earlier, I mentioned that I left the engine on the model, but I've drilled the rivet out for that one as well, because I decided I wanted to keep the shiny chrome. So when I take that off, you can see there's a little spring in there and a bunch of crud, and that spring is for making the hood open so it doesn't just flip open. There's a little bit of friction. So we're up to the paint stage now, and I'm using Mr. Hobby metallic paint and leveling thinner, and the paint comes smoother out of the airbrush, and when it dries much more shiny. So now off to the spray booth. So the bottom, I'm doing it a little bit different from how Dinky did it. They painted the whole bottom, the one gold color, and I'm painting the bottom the way the actual car was. So the back part is painted the body color. So there's the bonnet, and I'm going in there, and first I put on light coats, and at the end I put on a wet coat that stays shiny. So all the parts are getting the same treatment with the same batch of paint. Of course, I could make another batch because I didn't mix anything. I'm just using the Mr. Hobby metallic red paint straight out of the jar. So they all get painted, and it's easier to paint the red over top of the pink primer. But I have to say, it's a deeper red color than you would get if you sprayed this over a white primer. In the end, at first I was thinking, oh, it doesn't look quite as bright, but in the end I like it better. It just looks fancier, it looks classier, and it looks very deep. It's almost like it's pearlescent. Now I discovered something on the last project, and that is I can use caustic soda without boiling water, just warm water, and it's just like a really strong soap, and that's useful for taking paint off of small parts like this that I don't want to necessarily put them into the boiling water, which is what I'm doing with these wheels and with the tires. I'm able to take the paint off of the tires with the caustic soda just like this in warm water. It's actually dissolving the paint, which is a cool thing to discover, because that's very useful for things like windows and other plastic parts and rubber parts that you're worried that you'll damage in the caustic soda bath. So time to paint the gold parts of this. Again, the leveling thinner goes in here, and this is Mr. Hobby metallic gold paint, which I love after the last project I did. So I want to use some of it on this project too. So back to the spray booth. So now I get the rest of the bottom is going to be a gold color. It's a little golder than the version of paint that Dinky had on there, but I wanted to paint these wheels, the spokes, with the gold color because it looks fancy. It's a modern thing to have these gold spokes. So, but it looks really good with the red paint. So I think it's a nice effect. Now again, there's high spots, so I'm using the micro mesh sanding cloth to take off the high points, and then it's going to get a gloss coat. Everything gets a gloss coat. Here we go in the spray booth. And this, of course, looks like it's all happening in one day, but it's not. It's happening days. Every time I spray paint, I've learned to just leave it at least one day. Sometimes I leave it 3 or 4 days just to make sure that it dries. Because if you leave it soft and then you have to handle it, you can leave your fingerprints in the paint. So here I taped the axles. I wouldn't want to take these apart. Now the music you're hearing is On Days Like These by Monroe. I think it's fair use. It's just a short clip. To illustrate an important point is that the Monroe song was used in one of my favorite movies, which is important for this model because I'm theming the model based on the movie. It's a Michael Caine movie called The Italian Job. Some people watching, if you're a fan of that movie, then you'll recognize the music right away. So here I'm putting a white background for the Okay, well, in the movie, the Jag was actually a coupe, and this is, of course, a 2+2. In the movie, the black Jag was the 2+2. But anyway, you get the idea, and when I saw this model, I remembered the movie, and sorry, I just had to do it. So the clear decal goes over top of the plain white one, so you get the white letters behind it. Now to the windshield. The windshield is interesting on this one. It's very heavily scratched, and I'm using, this is even before using my micro mesh fine polishing sandpaper. I'm using just ordinary sandpaper because I've got so much material to take off. And in fact, I decided I'm going to take off the windshield wipers. I don't think they add that much to the windshield, but I wouldn't be able to sand it otherwise. So I'm going here starting with 2400, 3200, 3600, and going through all the different grits, and I'm doing it quickly. And each step of the way it gets more and more polished. And something's telling me that it'd be a good idea to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. It helps me out with YouTube, and also gets more views in general. And it doesn't cost anything. And you won't miss my future videos, and I've got some really good ones coming up as well. So there I got it to a point where it looks shiny, like almost like a new one. Now the bumpers on the front and back of this one are separate castings, and I decided I was going to polish them, so I just used the metal polish and I polished them by hand with Q-tip and paper towels. And here I'm detailing the tail lights, and I looked up what the colors are, so I've got them historically correct. I'm using my tiniest detailing brush on these as well. So the rear number plate gets the same treatment as the front one. After the white one dries, then I can put the clear one on top of it that has the black, and then the white shows through the clear numbers. Now these are the marker lamps, or possibly indicators, not sure exactly, but I looked it up online, how they're done. This is for the front, and part of it is orange, so it's like it could be an indicator, it could be a marker lamp, and then the other part is it has a clear lens, so I paint that white. So it's half and half on this thing, but it's not half and half. It's kind of a 2/3 design. So I'm trying to get that accurate. It's just a stupid detail, but you know, I think it makes it look more realistic when you go to those kind of little details. So this is for the front. The front has broken in two pieces when it came out of the model. So I'm doing the two separate, and you won't see the brake on the final one because the brake is in a part that's completely hidden, which you'll see. So this is a very nice model. I like these castings because the indicator lights are actually right on top of the bumper like that. So it's really working well. So now we're going back to the interior. This is the dashboard, and it's mostly black, so I'm painting it with the satin black spray paint from the rattle can. And I've masked off a center portion that's going to be silver. And here I put 1, 2, 3 drops in. It's not the color I want. This is the interior color. I'm going for a leather look, a light leather that I looked at pictures online, and I found yeah, I needed to put a little white in there too. I was looking for the right mix of colors, and I got it with only 3 colors. Again, the leveling thinner goes in and mix it up and into the airbrush. Now we go back to the spray booth, and this is the main seats, and they get painted yellow. Now here's a part again that I 3D printed the door panels, interior door panels, and the seat backs. These are the folding seats so that you can get into the back seats of the 2+2. Those of course were broken off of the original one, and here you can see this is that rubbery masking material. And in the end, I'm using this silver paint from Vallejo, and I'm just brushing it on. But it's very thick paint, it goes right over the black anyway, so I really didn't need to do all that masking. So I'm using the same paint, painting the console in the middle. Just a little bit of detailing in there. And then these door panels. That's interesting. I'm painting the silver, and then I go and I paint brown on the handles where you pull the door shut with. And you'll see it's all going well here. I put a nice accent at the top of the door panel where it comes to the window. I think it looks nice. And then I go with the seats. These are seat backs. These are all done. I did on the 3D printer. Here I'm painting the lines on the back with the silver. I went a little bit over, and I fixed that up later. So these came out in the end pretty good. And in the back they've molded in a suitcase or a briefcase or something. So I'm going to paint it like a suitcase or briefcase. So there's all kinds of detail on the dashboard. This is actually matching the dashboard on a Jaguar, but silver and white, there's not a lot of contrast. It's way too small to start painting little needles pointing on those gauges. So I just did a bit of minimal work. And here I'm painting that suitcase in the back. I've seen other people do it. It winds up looking pretty cool. So here I'm back in the door panels, and what happens is I start doing this, and then I get mixed up whether the camera is on record or on standby. So I wound up painting the handles on those window winders when the camera was on pause. So that happens once in a while. So this is the original steering wheel. I was thinking I would print one with the fancy holes in it and everything, and I'm thinking nobody can see inside this thing anyway, so I'm just going to keep it minimum. There's my workbench in the middle of the project. So here's the engine. I've cleaned the paint off of it and polished it up, and now I'm painting some details on it. And I think it looks really cool when all these details are painted and there's a few different colors, and it makes it look really interesting. I don't know what all these parts are, but I figured those ones needed to be yellow. So this is the emblem that's on the front grille of the E-Type Jaguar. It's the Jaguar inside the red sunburst pattern. So I filed that thing down so I can try and get a round red circle onto that part of the front grille. And I had a little more trouble than I was hoping for, but eventually it came out all right. And then my Jaguar head in silver, there, looks exactly like a Jaguar. So here's another tiny 3D printed part. This is the base for the radio antenna, and I've got a little piece of copper wire that goes inside it, the 3D printed base, and it worked out first try. And so I'm making the thing silver, and then I paint that base black afterwards anyway because I thought it's going to look better. So here's the latest set of headlights. These are the final versions. I did 4 of them. I always do extra ones in case you screw something up. So I'm putting some clear coat on those so they look clear. And now we start the reassembly. First, to put the wheels onto the base. So my system works perfectly. So now I've got the interior parts. These are the door panels. So I'm going to use epoxy, 5-minute epoxy, to glue them back on. So I'm showing everything here. And I've got some people have been commenting they would like to see what I did before. I always showed every single detail. This one I showed some details. I didn't show all of them. And the next one I was in the middle of it before I got these messages, so I wasn't recording everything as well. But afterwards I think I'm going to go back to showing every little detail because people seem to like that. So there, the spring goes in, the engine goes on, and I tapped and threaded that one so that gets rigidly attached, which is important because that spring has to have some friction against the bar that the bonnet hinges on. So you can see here it's two parts because it broke, which makes it easier to put together. It's actually a good thing. You can see here where it is broken is in a place where it's invisible. So I just put a little bit of that epoxy on there, push it in place, and it's right back perfectly normal. So here I'm putting the dashboard on, which was ill-advised, which you'll see in a minute. And then I pop my tilting seat backs in there. I figured out the system, how they work. Now I put my window into the fully painted hatchback. And now to put it back together, I've got to put the parts in place, and then I have to kind of tape them and hold them in place in order to put the whole thing together, because otherwise I don't have enough hands to hold all these parts together. So I'm using this is the tape for painting because it peels off well and doesn't tend to take the paint with it. So here I'm getting ready to put the base on, but first the interior is going to have to go in. And I'm finding that you can't get that dashboard past the door hinges. So this is not going to work. And also I forgot to put the windshield in. So back to the beginning and put the windshield in first. And I put that in with a little bit of epoxy. And you can see, look at how I had to maneuver that dashboard in place. And then it has a little pin that it sits on. And now I've got to push this the interior onto that dashboard, and it fits into a little notch and it has to snap in place. It's quite a tricky operation to put this thing back together again. There I'm trying to get it into the right space, and it's driving me crazy here. and then I think I just push on it a little bit harder until it snaps into place onto that dashboard, and there it is. So next goes on the rear bumper, and then it's ready for the base. And that's tricky too, because I've got to line up the holes with the pins on the door hinges. So it's a kind of a finesse thing to get it right. And then you know when it's right, because then it pops right into place and you know, okay, that's everything's in the right spot. So that's the body work all put together, and take off those little construction tapes. And now we go to more assembly. Now these details that come on these later models, I'm not used to doing these kind of details, because the old models from the 40s and 50s, they didn't have these kind of details. This one's loaded with them. It's got the antenna, it's got these hood or bonnet mounted headlights, or sorry, mirrors, and here are the headlights, the final version that I came up with. Maybe I could have made them better, but man, I ran out of time, because it's so time consuming trying to get those curves and everything exactly right. So now I paint on some door handles, and then there's these little pips on the front. I think those are actually windshield wiper pins where the windshield wipers match up. So instead of the turntable, here's where we started as a reminder. Let's see what it looks like now. Well, I think it's a fantastic looking model. It's perhaps my favorite one so far. It looks gorgeous. So many bits of bling on it. It's got the Italian job theme, and I think those gold spokes work out really, really well. And all the parts open and work perfectly. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Timo's Dinky Detailing, and the next episode is going to have another beautiful car, and it's a basket case as well, and this one came out surprisingly good, because actually the casting was in good shape. So until next time, be seeing you.